The fact the marriage was technically incestuous was quietly forgotten, again for the greater good. But inwardly, it was quite a different story. However, now, to those close to Nero, it had become clear that only he could curb his own behaviour. But if he chose not to, then that was his prerogative. Seneca and Burrus, who between them had taken on the task of moulding the young princeps into a temperate and just ruler, could do nothing to restrain the desires within Nero that had grown with each of his 21 years. And his desires were great. Too great to be satisfied by the patrician rigidity of his young wife, reclining to the left of her husband, with a blank look on her face that she had worn for the past 4 years since Nero had humiliated her by taking a freedwoman to his bed and withholding from her the chance to produce an heir. But even the charms of the freedwoman, Acte, had not been enough to fulfill the lust of a young man who had come to realize that he could do anything that pleased him to anyone he chose. It was now becoming clear that many things pleased him, and ordering the elite of Rome to join him for lavish dinners at a few moments' notice was, however inconvenient, the most innocuous. There were far darker activities that pleased Nero, even more. One of those activities Sabinus guessed, as Tigellinus, the prefect of the Vigiles, approached his couch. The emperor was going to indulge in, yet again, later. Dark-eyed and sharp-featured, Tigellinus leant down to whisper in Sabinus's ear. "The Quirinal from the 4th hour." With a smile like a rabid dog's snarl, he patronizingly patted Sabinus on the cheek before walking away. Sabinus sighed, reached for his cup, downed its contents, then held it behind him for a naked slave boy, smeared all over with silver lacquer, to refill, as he turned to his corpulent neighbour, keeping his voice low. "You should get home quickly as soon as the dinner finishes, Uncle, if it ever does. He's planning on going out again tonight. Tigellinus just informed me that there are to be no patrols of his Vigiles around the Quirinal Hill after the 4th hour of the night, apart, of course, from the one that shadows Nero to keep him safe." His uncle, Gaius Vespasius Polo, flicking a carefully tongued ringlet of dyed black hair away from his cold eyes, looked at Sabinus, alarmed at the lack of Rome's night watch in his neighbourhood. "Not the Quirinal again, dear boy. The area is still reeling from his rampage through it last month." Sabinus nodded thoughtfully, sipping from his replenished cup. "1 tenement block and 2 houses burnt to the ground, 6 rapes, countless broken bones, and several murders, as well as the forced suicide of Julius Montanus for daring to try to defend himself when set upon by what he thought was a slave in a ridiculous wig." Gaius's jowls and chins wobbled in indignation. He reached for another anchovy pasty. "A man of senatorial status ordered to kill himself for apologising when he reckoned that his attacker, whom he now had in a headlock, was in fact the emperor. It's too much. It's been going on for more than a year now. How much longer will we have to stand for this sort of thing?" The pasty disappeared whole into Gaius's mouth. "You know the answer to that, as long as Nero subjects us to it. It's his idea of fun, and with his friend Otho and other young bucks encouraging him, it can only get worse." Sabinus looked over at the tall, well-built, and exceedingly handsome man reclining to the right of the emperor. 3 years older than Nero, Marcus Salvius Otho had been the emperor's lover on and off since Nero's 10th year. "And as the urban prefect responsible for law and order in Rome, it's you who's made to look stupid, dear boy." Gaius joined in the rapturous applause led by Nero, weeping freely, for the conclusion of the performer's latest rendition. Sabinus raised his voice over the exaggerated adulation. "You know perfectly well there's nothing I can do about it. Tigellinus tells me where he's withdrawing his patrols from, so that I can order a century of one of the urban cohorts to be on standby in the area in case Nero needs to be extracted in a hurry, or his activities cause a riot. He claims he tries to keep the violence to a minimum." "My flabby arse, he does," Gaius scoffed, and reached for another pasty. "The more violent it becomes, the happier he is, because it adds another element of fear for us all, and the more we fear Nero, the more secure his position becomes, and Tigellinus with it. Thankfully, I've got 4 of Tigran's lads waiting to escort me home, although since he took over from Magnus as the leader of the South Quirinal Crossroads Brotherhood, I'm obliged to do more favours in return for the service, and it's all because you're failing in your duty." A disturbance at the far end of the room saved Sabinus a blustered answer.